years on, people have gone out of jobs. With the government regime has made people out of a job, and not only have they lost their jobs, they've also lost their homes.
There's a lot of things the government say that there is no poverty in England. I would say there's quite a lot of poverty in England. I would say there's as much poverty here as there is anywhere else in the world.
If you are born poor in Britain, you will stay poor. Basically, government policy has engendered the idea that if you have money, you will increase your money. If you have very little money, you will stay like that. You will stay poor.
These families live in Newtown, a suburb of Birmingham. Here, some 12,500 people live in huge grey buildings and little social houses. 50% of the Newtown citizens are unemployed. Nearly everybody who lives here is poor. From 1979, the total number of British living under the European level of poverty has risen from 5 million to 14 million. 1 in 4 of the poor in Europe is British. They are the victims of an economic model which doesn't work. On the 17th floor of the Brooks Tower lives Jeremy Dennis. He was fired 6 weeks ago due to his asthma problems. Now he's got to survive with his unemployment allowance, which he says is too little to live on.
I get £27 now. If I had a job, I'd need at least £180 to live on because of my rent and community charge and all that. Because you don't get no benefits when you're working. I've just got to, don't go out all that much. My mum helps me out. She does me dinners and that. It's hard to live on.
People with low levels of education have seen their salaries cut down. On the other hand, the highly skilled have seen their salaries rise by 200%.
It makes me mad because they don't deserve that much money. When there's people having the water cut off and people who can't afford food for the kids now, and they're justifying getting that £500,000 a year. It's just unreal.
The low pay policy has been crucial for the British Conservative government, but this policy and the belief in the free market system don't offer more jobs, according to Chris Pond, president of the study bureau, the Low Pay Unit, in London.
The British government believes that the free market, unregulated markets, are the best way to compete in the world and to create jobs. And that means that people in Britain have far fewer rights, both social and employment rights, than elsewhere in the European Union countries. We have no legal minimum wage in this country. There is no limit to the hours that people are asked to work each week. And indeed, there is no right to paid holidays for any British citizen. Now, that has not, in fact, resulted in the creation of more jobs. We've created far fewer jobs, proportionately, than other European countries in recent years, but it has resulted in very considerable poverty and hardship.
Carol Varney lives with her husband and 2 children on the border of Newtown. She's got a part-time job in a transportation company. Her husband has been out of a job for 3 years. Although she has an income of £143, she can't survive without money problems.
In order to make the money go around, you go without things. Sometimes your diet's not as good as it could be, you know. The kids like meat, but it's very rare we have meat. And then the heating you would have on at certain hours, but you wouldn't have it on all the time, where probably somebody who was financially better off would have more heating and they'd probably have a better diet and that sort of situation. So you adapt to what you've got coming in.
Carol relates her low income to the fact that Great Britain abolished the minimum wage. Low-educated people earn around £1.50 an hour. The unions are trying to reinstate the minimum wage of £4, but until now, without success. Every employer is free to determine the wage he's willing to pay.
A large companies tend to have people come in, financial advisors come in and set a target. The target for my sort of work at the moment for new employers, after 5.5 years of me being there, they tried to employ people for £3.69, I think the amount was, which was below the £4 minimum working wage. And it just doesn't seem to work. There doesn't seem to be enough people willing to go ahead to try and get the minimum wage. People are too worried about losing their jobs to stand up for the rights in this country.
People with money problems can ask for support from the welfare organisation, the Birmingham Settlement.
Good afternoon, Birmingham Settlement. Can I help you? If you'd like to hold the line, I'll put you through to our Money Advice Department. Hold the line, please.
Tessa Farrell works for the Money Advice Centre. She advises people on how to manage their low income.
In Newtown, there are a lot of working poor. That's people who are working full-time, but probably working for a fairly low salary, but are earning just a little bit too much to qualify for help from the government with social security.
I think Britain wants to compete with the rest of Europe. They feel that they should act as the low-wage economy in Europe, not only to win an advantage over their European partners, but also to attract investment from the Third World and from the newly developing countries on the Pacific Rim, such as Taiwan and South Korea. So that we recently had a report in the French newspaper, Le Monde, telling us that, with quotes from Taiwanese and South Korean industrialists, telling us that they were coming to Britain because wages in Britain were in fact lower than in their home countries.
Great Britain refused to subscribe to the social chapter of the Maastricht Treaty. This led to the loss of every right of protection for the British employees.
The future lies in having a flexible economy where entrepreneurs can take advantage of new opportunities as they arise, which is as competitive as possible internationally. And the government sees some of the kind of legislation that would be brought in by the social protocol of Maastricht as acting against that, as tying the hands of employers, as making it more difficult for them to hire workers and to fire workers. And they argue that if it is difficult to fire your employees, then you are going to be less likely to hire them in the first place.
There is hardly any communication between employers and unions. The British employers don't even have to recognise the unions. The TUC stands with its back to the wall. The employees have lost their faith in the union. In 1979, the TUC had 13 million members. Now, there are only 9 million left.
We've already halved the amount of people that were in non-craft, which is engineering, non-craft unions. So our numbers are halved. So that means that the unions are no longer as strong as they was. What they could have done 5 years ago, they're no longer capable of.
People don't believe anymore in unions.
No, there's no strength. The unions themselves, in number, are so down. They no longer they no longer seem to have the power. They no longer seem to have the ability that they used to hold years ago. If the union said the company will do this, the company did it. Now the unions say, oh, if the company say that's okay, that's what we're going to do.
I think the government would not at all argue that its policy had been intended to increase social exclusion. It would argue perhaps that the position might have been worse if it had not liberalised the labour market and if the trades unions had remained strong. It has been more concerned, for instance, to keep down the level of government spending so that the level of taxation can be kept down. And again, it sees that as being part of that a low level of taxation will bring benefits to the enterprise economy. It will make it easier for firms to make profits and to reinvest them, and therefore in the long run to create employment which will benefit the whole community. But I think this has been called, one of the names that has been given to this is the trickle-down theory, that if things go well at the top, then eventually the benefits of that will trickle down to the bottom. Well, I think What is now very clear from the statistics we have on what's happened in Britain since the late 1970s is that that has not yet happened.
Although the number of poorly educated, unemployed people is still rising, the British government keeps cutting down on welfare budgets. Here lives Loretta Matthews. She is a single parent. Together with her 4 children, she tries to survive with £121 a week. Too little, she says. She's obliged to lend money from loan sharks, people who will lend you money with rates of up to 4,000%. Rita can't pay the money that she lent back. She often lives in a scary situation.
They would send someone that you call a bailiff that would come out and hassle you, sort of. Some of them's all right, some of them would just, you know, they have like a court order to come in and take things from your home, you know, that would cover the cost of whatever. And then that's it. Some, you know, you get some that sort of maybe take the law in their own hand and come out and, you know, hassle you. You know, sometimes you'd have to fight back and then you end up, you know, going to prison for grievous bodily harm.
She can't go to the banks. Her income is too low to borrow money. 5 years ago, there were still 27 banks. Now, there are only 4 left. There is no money in Newtown. The shops have closed. People who live there don't have the money to spend. Banks and shops gave up any hope for Newtown. Loretta's biggest worry is how to pay all the bills. The only way to pay her electricity bill is via this token system.
I'm putting the card into the machine. Now I've got some electricity. This is based on something that's called a budget scheme. This is how it works. You have to go to any newsagent with your card and then have as many tokens, you know, maybe £5 worth of tokens, maybe £10 worth of tokens. If I haven't got any tokens, I'll just have to stay in the dark until when I'm able to do so. You know, I'm able to get some money to buy the tokens to put into the meter.
And then you'll be out of electricity?
Yeah, I'll be out of electricity until I'm able to get the token to put in. There's nothing else I can do.
In the last 2 government budgets, there have been cuts in welfare benefits, and the general trend is for the government to be withdrawing support, withdrawing the social security safety net from people who desperately need that help. And basically it amounts to the government saying to individuals that really you must fend for yourself.
Stan and Georgina Wallace are people who can't look after themselves. Georgina is unemployed, Stan is on a pension. Together, they have to live on £73 a week.
Our income is lower than what our bills are. We have to juggle between bills, like if we got water and rent at the same time, I have to pay one or the other one. We have been threatened with court action from the MEB and the poll tax people. Basically, they just come and take the furniture if we don't pay the bill.
Also, the British pension system is going down the hill. Rich people are opting for the opting out system.
The opting out system appeals to people who can afford their own pension. What actually happens is they contract out of the state earnings pension scheme, which means there is less money in that scheme for poor people who will claim when they retire. So in 30 years' time, it may be that there is no retirement pension which the government pays. So I don't know what will happen to people who cannot contract out because they're not working or because they earn too little to buy into a private pension. Again, it's helping the rich people get richer and the poor will get poorer as a consequence.
We have a lot of building going on at the moment. They're altering the flats by filling in the balconies, putting a cage over them and windows because people get so depressed that they jump off the balconies. I sometimes get depressed myself, but I don't think I'd ever jump off the balcony.
You never thought about that?
In the past I probably have, just as a passing thought, but you know, I tend to find something else to occupy my mind. I'll go for a walk. Sometimes I feel that angry about the way things are going that I'll walk for miles without realising how far I've gone. Then I have to walk back home.
Oi! Come on! Get out of there!
What is happening? What is happening?
They'll go in a minute. They were climbing in the workyard. You see the ladders on the roofs there? They take them and climb into the flats on the ground floor. I would say they're only about 11, 12-year-olds. We got you on camera now, clear off. See them run off now. Look, they've run. They're gone.
Poverty in Britain pushes adults and minors to crime. Shirley Scott was heartbroken when the police picked up her 14-year-old son.
Why was he picked up?
Because he was caught in a pub, but they hadn't got no evidence to charge him, so they had to let him off. But that ain't the first incident I've had with my son anyway. If he can get money, he'll do whatever he can to get it. So what kick did you get out of it?
I'm getting a kick out of it.
Well, what'd you do?
It's fun.
Oh, it's fun robbing people's houses and robbing people on the streets.
In Newtown, the police are powerless. They are undermanned and unarmed. In the meantime, they keep on patrolling by car. More and more people are asking for the bobbies to come onto the street again.
There is a high crime rate in this area, I feel, because of the social deprivation. A lot of movement in and out of the area. The drugs obviously attract the wrong type of person into the area, and to get money for the drugs, people are committing crime.
Irene has lived for 40 years in Newtown. She has also been mugged. Now, she's afraid to walk alone in the streets.
When I was younger, I know the change. Years ago, you could walk anywhere, go out, leave doors open, no one would bother you. And even like 10 years ago, you could do that. But it's gradually got worse and worse. So no one really goes out unless they're going in a group or someone's picking them up in a car or something.
In Great Britain, the income of parents is of crucial importance for the education of children. High-income families can offer their children better education and better chances for the future. The British can choose between private schools and state schools. Private schools are for many people an unreachable dream.
If I could get a private education, yes, perhaps I would. If I could afford that, yes, I would. In later life, if I, you know, move on and get a decent job, yes, she will have a private education. But I'd like the best for her to have a decent education, and then hopefully she'll get a decent job. But what is, you know, how can you see 20 years from now? When I was at school, I didn't think it would be like this. I thought I'd had left school, gone to college, got a wonderful job and been happy, married and the rest of it. No Cinderella tale.
We have a real problem in Britain in terms of the level of investment in both education and training. About 1 million school children are now being educated in classes which are more than 30 in size, which makes it very difficult for those children who need the extra help really to get that help. The result, according to the employers' organisation, the Confederation of British Industry, is that we have a workforce which is too poorly educated to compete effectively in the world. And one of the main reasons why we've seen the very sharp increase in the gap between the rich and the poor in Britain is that we have this enormous difference in educational standards and educational opportunities.
Despite the disastrous consequences of the government's economic system for a large proportion of British citizens, the government won't change their opinion. European employees are too expensive and too inflexible. There's more. The British government wants to push her economic model towards the rest of Europe.
I think Britanisation would be a disaster for the people of Europe. We've had an experiment in Britain lasting for 15 years or more to see what would happen if we pursued that set of economic and social policies. The result has been a very substantial growth in poverty and in hardship, but it has not resulted in more jobs or greater prosperity for the nation as a whole.
People of Newtown have lost their hopes. They don't think that the situation will change in the near future. They've lost all their faith in the politicians.
I don't think they do care about people. You know, the rich do not care. In saying they don't care about everybody, they care about their own. But when it boils down to saying, well, there's no such thing as poverty in England, if they were to open their eyes a bit more or come out into the communities a bit more, they will see the poverty.
So how do you look at your own future?
I'm not looking at my own future at the moment. I'll just live by day to day. It's these I'm looking forward to, you know, the future that they've got, which at the moment they haven't got a future.
I feel ashamed to say that I come from Britain, because I can understand the very real anger and frustration of people elsewhere in Europe when they hear that Britain is not prepared to accept the same standards as those which have existed for many years in other European countries. The fact that we want to compete on the basis of low wages and therefore perhaps to put our European partners out of jobs. The fact that we're not prepared to accept the same standards of protection for children at work as those which exist in other European countries. And the fact that we are openly prepared to undermine the attempts of the rest of Europe to move forward on the basis of solidarity and partnership in order to win a short-term economic and political gain.
Sometimes I'd sit down and cry. Sometimes I would go to the half license or something like that and buy myself maybe a can of beer or some brandy, some alcoholic drink, and sort of sit in the house and cry to myself and drink the whole bottle. You know, but I don't get drunk or anything like that, you know. It's just like, to me at the time, it seems like my problem has been solved. But then the following day, when the drink is finished, then I'm back to square one.